Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel. I'm here with the Cardmaker Magazine blog today, and we're doing a really fun blog hop with Lawn Fawn. Lawn Fawn is one of my absolute favorite companies ever. They make the greatest stamps, dyes, inks, pattern papers, so much more. I just love them. So today I want to talk about second and third generation stamping to create a background using one basic stamp. So I grabbed this tiny little set here that's got a medium-sized heart, a little itty-bitty heart, and then a die. And this is actually a heart swatch. So they recommend using it to swatch out their ink colors, but it's also a really great stamp for Valentines or love hearts or any other kinds of love cards. So I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn Pink Flamingo dye ink today, and it's a new color. It's really great, nice and bright and fun. And then I'm going to stamp it. I'm not going to use a stamp positioner today because I'm going to be doing this second and third generation stamping, which is what you just saw me do. I inked up the stamp, stamped it once, and then before inking it, I stamped it a second and third time. You get 3 different colors from this, which is really fun because it sort of extends the versatility of your inks. If for each color of ink you get actually 3 or more colors from it. So I'm just moving around and doing a pattern of these hearts as the background for my card. And I think this is a really fun way to create your own background pattern paper or just to use your stamps and your inks in a new way. So you can see that when I'm stamping off the edge of the paper like that, then I have to stamp on scratch paper to get rid of the ink. Otherwise, you'll have an uneven amount on one side versus the other. So here, for example, I'm going to stamp off the edge of the paper, and then I'm going to stamp twice and then 3 times on the scratch paper. This way I get all the ink off and then we start fresh again. And then when I want to go in with a second generation stamp, I will stamp off on the scratch paper first and then stamp on the card. So I'm just moving around trying to get just a different variety of all the different colors that we have going here. And then, so you can see there, I stamped off on the scratch paper and then I came in for the second and third generation on the card. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to come in with the first stamp on the scratch paper and then the second and third on the card. So there's my background, and I really like the way that came out. I think that's a lot of fun and it's super cute. So now I'm going to grab the tiny little heart stamp, and I'm only going to do first generation stamping with this tiny stamp. It's so itty bitty that I think it would just get lost if I used the second and third generation stamping with this, but I really like the way this little itty bitty stamp fills in some of the open spots and kind of gives it more of a look of pattern paper and less of the look of just random stamping on the card front. So once that's done, then you can use this as is. You can die cut it down. You have lots of options there. So I next decided that I was going to make some little conversation hearts using the die. So what I'm going to do is take some anti-static tool on some pink pattern paper, and then I'm going to use the stamp set that I have here and Versamark ink, and I'm going to stamp it out a couple of times, and then I'm going to use some Hero Arts white embossing powder and sprinkle that on there and then shake it off. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to heat set the embossing powder. And this is such a tiny little sentiment that it happens very quickly, but you can see there that that's done. And then once the whole sentiment is cool, I'm going to lay the die on top so I know exactly where I'm cutting, put some washi on, and run it through my Sizzix machine. And there you go. I have these little conversation hearts now. This is something different that I didn't do in the first card. The first card I just used the pattern as is with the third generation, second generation, first generation stamps. But I really like these little conversation hearts on top. I think they're fun. So next I grabbed some plaid Lawn Fawn paper from their 6x6 pad, and I cut it with the stitched rectangle die to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So then I took our stamped background and cut it just the slightly smaller size of the stitched rectangle dies. And now I'm adhering those conversation hearts in a couple of places on top of the darkest color hearts there. Then I cut with the stitched heart die another piece of Lawn Fawn pattern paper. I think this was from Let's Polka. And I also cut a piece of fun foam from the same die. That will help me pop up this heart, and it will stay really popped up even if I send it through the mail. So I'm using some Thermoweb mixed media adhesive. It's a liquid adhesive. It's permanent and it dries clear, and it's easy to apply something like fun foam to a card front using that wet adhesive. But I'm going to grab my adhesive runner, my Memory Runner XL, and put it on the back of the pattern paper, and then that adheres nicely to the fun foam. Okay, then I used the little stamp set there, and I will write the name down at the bottom. And I'm stamping out several of the little birdies and then a couple of phones. And I love that this stamp set has these little speech bubbles for inside the phone for the text messages, and they have the speech bubble for both sides so that it's showing the conversation between two people. I think that's just the cutest idea and so much fun. So I'm going to stamp that with the pink flamingo ink as well. And then because I love my gold iPhone, I'm going to come in with some gold Wink of Stella pen, and I'm just going to color the outside rim of the phone here. And I'm going to do it for both. Usually when I'm stamping things like this, I have a couple of stamped images that don't turn out so well. Like you can see one of the birds there didn't stamp fully. So I just like to stamp a bunch of things. And then if I make a mistake coloring, it's no big deal. I have another one to work with. So once I'm done with the Wink of Stella, I'm going to come in with some Copic markers and color a few little birds. And I'm not doing anything really that exciting, a little bit of blending, but mostly just using two different colors on the birds. They're kind of tiny little guys, so I don't think you need to go really crazy with blending and lots of different colors in there. But I think it does look nice to have one side of the birds be a little bit darker and the other side be a little bit lighter, just to show where the light is hitting. And so that's pretty easy to do with just two colors and blending with Copic markers. So then I'm just going to color in their beaks with one color, and now I'm going to put my whole card together. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding note card, and I'm just going to use my Memory Runner to adhere our card base down to it. And then I'm just going to try and decide how I want my birds and phone. I think I want them popped up. So I like to use Thermoweb adhesive 3D Zots because they are clear. You won't see them behind the phone or behind the birds. And if you have nonstick scissors and you need to cut them, you can do that as well. So I have 2 Zots behind the little phone. I'm going to put one behind each head of the bird. It's really easy. You just lay the bird down on the Zot and then you pull it up and it's got it adhered in the back. So each bird gets a Zot, and then this has got a lot of dimension and I'm really happy with it. So I just need a sentiment. But one last thing I need to do is use some glossy accents. I really like the way the glossy accents looks on the phone screen and then also on the button. It gives it a little bit of dimension, but it gives it a lot of shine too. So the last thing to add was a sentiment, and I just stamped these "a little message to say" and "I love you" onto pink cardstock. Cut it down real thin, and then I cut it on the left edge of the heart and then did a little flag on the right edge. So that's 2 different ways that you can use 2nd and 3rd generation stamping and lots of Lawn Fawn stamps. Be sure to stop by my blog because I'll have links to the giveaway and all kinds of other goodies. Thanks so much for stopping by.